In this video, we're going to talk about the idea of being hospitable. Now, many of us probably bristle at that word because it reminds us of like June Cleaver in the 50s, and we have our apron and our pearls on, and women are just about cooking a great meal and being in the home. And the reality is, being hospitable is so much more than that. Not that those are bad things, those are great things, but that's not what hospitality is limited to. It's more than that. It's about an environment that you create around you. So that's what we're going to talk about in this video because it goes along with the second principle that we use for women's basics. And we're going to go back to our text in Luke chapter 10, and we've been talking about Mary and Martha. And we've already learned that Mary definitely had a heart that understood that God was her first priority. When Jesus came to visit, she was sitting at his feet, and that was the main thing she was doing. But we also see Martha as part of the story, and Martha usually gets a pretty bad rap in this story. But I want to challenge us to not be so hard on Martha because she has some things to offer here. So let's look at the text first. Here's what it says. Martha was distracted by the big dinner she was preparing. Now, that doesn't sound so good, right? Short little verse. She was distracted. Usually the word distracted is not a great word to use. But here's what I want to say. Martha had the heart of hospitality. She wanted to create an environment for Jesus and his disciples that was going to make them feel important and special because that's what they were. So for Martha, she was distracted by details. She was distracted by the meal and cleaning and doing all the things that go into creating a warm, friendly, inviting environment that would make people feel special. So Martha definitely modeled a heart of hospitality. That's not a bad thing. That's a great thing. Here's the definition of being hospitable, because I think it's going to challenge all of us. It challenged me too when I thought about it, because I always think of hospitality as, did I put on a good spread when we invited people over for dinner? Did it look pretty? Did I have the china out? Whatever. But here's what it means to be hospitable, that you create a warm and sustaining environment. So it doesn't just have to be limited to being a great host with food and inviting people to dinner. It's more than that. It's a way of life. It's a way of how you interact with people, that it's warm and inviting, and that it's sustaining, that it creates growth and encourages growth in people. That's what really it means to be hospitable. That's what our second principle is about, to be hospitable. Create an environment around you, whatever capacity you're in. If it's being a wife or a mom or a worker, a friend, a daughter, that you create an environment around you that's warm and sustaining, that's encouraging, that lifts people up and encourages them to be at their best. So here's some tips for learning how to be hospitable. The first thing is be a servant. That was one thing Martha did very well. She definitely was a servant. She was not thinking about herself. She was very selfless in her goal. When Jesus and his disciples were coming, she was doing whatever it took to make that environment warm and friendly and engaging. And so she was a servant. She was putting their needs ahead of her own. And that's something that for all of us, if we want to be hospitable women, then we need to be selfless in our approach to life and to our relationships. That we're not thinking about, well, what is in it for me? Or how does this help me? But that we anticipate the needs of others and we put others before ourselves. Here's the second way that you can be hospitable. Find your purpose. Here's what I mean by that. We all have lots of things going on and we're like gerbils on a wheel, right? None of us, I'm sure, are short on having some purpose in terms of we know what our responsibilities are. We know the things that we have to be doing. But deeper than that is what I mean in finding your purpose, is recognizing that God created you with very specific abilities and strengths, and he has plans for you. And if we're too busy on the wheel of just doing life and just kind of doing our own thing and not really thinking about it from God's point of view, then we're missing the point of our true purpose. Another thing that I think women can sometimes fall into is because we're busy and we've got a lot of things and people depending on us, we're always looking for me time. We're always looking for, I just want to sit on the couch and veg. I just want to read this romance novel. I just want to spend time shopping or going to the spa. And those aren't bad things, except that if that's your main purpose, is you're always just looking for the next break that you get, then I think we're missing out on that idea of what God wants for us as women, which is to be hospitable, that we're finding our purpose in him to make an impact, a meaningful impact on people around us. So instead of just looking for my next break, I'm looking for who's the next person that I can have an impact on. Because that's ultimately the purpose that God's given us, is to make an impact on people for him. And here's the third tip for being hospitable. Be a mentor. Whether it's to your kids or to a friend or to coworkers, look for opportunities to speak God's truth in a loving and affirming way that makes them better and you better for it. Be a mentor. Be someone that's willing to share God's truth with other people, to have meaningful conversations where you can look at God's truth and apply it to your life in a practical way and help other people do that too. There is no greater way than to find your purpose and to be hospitable by creating that environment around you that's encouraging and sustaining than if you are being a mentor and coming alongside the people that are in your life and saying, how can I help that person learn more about God? How can I help that person with that issue to know how to apply the truth of God's word to that situation? So don't forget that second principle is be hospitable. Create an environment around you that's encouraging and uplifting, that brings people closer to the Lord because they're around you, because you're willing to have meaningful conversations, because you're looking to meet the needs of other people before yourself. That you really learn from Martha in that part of the story, even though Martha gets the bad rap sometimes, that her heart was to create an environment that made people feel special, namely Jesus, because he is the most special person that could ever come to any of our homes. But for all of us, to create an environment where people feel special and cared for.